How we doing, everybody? UFC Thoughts here, and today I'm going to be going over my picks and breakdown for every fight on UFC 314, Volkanovski vs. Lopes on April 12th, 2025. Timestamps in the comments below. Let's get right into it with the first fight of 13. We start with Nora Cornolle versus Hailey Cowan. I'll go with Nora Cornolle, probably by decision. Hailey Cowan has a lot of external factors going into this fight, i.e. that she hasn't won a fight since 2022, hasn't fought since 2023, and she's just not entirely active. And I like Nora Cornolle's opponents so far in the UFC. Jocelyn Edwards is decently good. I think Jocelyn Edwards is actually pretty solid, and Nora Cornolle was able to grapple with her, and Jocelyn's very big, and even on the feet, Nora Cornolle was having some success. Next win, Melissa Mullins, my fault. She TKO'd her, and Melissa Mullins in the Claudia Segula fight just showed that she's a monster if she can get it to the ground. She showed that against Irene Oleksiejczuk as well. And Nora Cornolle was able to stuff those takedowns, and Hailey Cowan usually shoots quite a few takedowns, shot, I believe, 8 over Jamie Lynn Horth. And I don't really rate Jamie Lynn Horth. I think Jamie Lynn Horth is pretty mid, if I'm being totally honest with you. And Hailey Cowan's striking is going to be a little bit subpar compared to Nora Cornolle, even though she's going to have a pretty decent size advantage over Nora, which is seemingly something that happens a lot with Nora. I do believe Nora Cornolle has a bit more quick twitch muscle in her body, and I think that her kicks are going to work very well against Hailey Cowan, because that's something Jamie Lynn Horth had a insurmountable amount of success with, the body kick especially in the first round. If Hailey Cowan can maybe walk her down, it's a big cage. She's never fought in an octagon the size that she's going to fight in come Saturday. If she's able to walk down Nora Cornolle, maybe it'll be a more competitive fight, but I don't believe she will. Hailey Cowan will try to walk her down, but I think she might walk onto something that she doesn't like, shoot some pretty mediocre takedowns. I believe Nora Cornolle, kickboxing background, I imagine one of the only things she's working on right now is her takedown defense. So I'll go Nora Cornolle by points. Probably 30-27, maybe 29-28 here and there, but I think either way, Nora Cornolle outstrikes her, can defensively grapple just enough to get past Hailey Cowan, and Hailey Cowan just doesn't fight enough for me to pick her. I can't go into this fight thinking that she's gotten crazy better at fighting, so I have to go with what I've seen, and I don't see it. We move to Tresean Gore versus Marco Tulio. I'll go with Marco Tulio, probably by first or second round knockout. It could turn into maybe a tricky fight if Marco Tulio does make a number of mistakes, maybe shooting a takedown on Tresean Gore, allowing him to implement his submission game, which is probably one of the better parts of Tresean Gore's mixed martial arts career. I looked back at the Cody Brundage fight, and besides the KO, he does get hit a lot by right hands. I don't know if that was something that everybody else has noticed about him. Dude, Tresean Gore got hit by almost every right hand that Cody was throwing at him. He absorbs almost 6 strikes a minute and only lands 3. Now, I don't know if that's heavily inflated from maybe the Brian Battle fight, but that's fucking nuts. Marco Tulio, pretty defensively sound. Can get caught sometimes. The Duclos guy on the Contender Series, for example, was tagging him up near the end of the first round. But Marco Tulio, super explosive. Both have very powerful thudding low kicks. I honestly think Tresean Gore's might be just a little bit better because he goes more for the calf. Marco Tulio goes for more of above the knee, thigh type of kicks. He'll charge into him, and he's a very blitzing type fighter. He'll throw the jab out there, throw a couple low kicks, and then blitz. But another area that I think Marco might have a bit of success in maybe is the clinch. If he doesn't shoot takedowns and just tries to wet blanket Tresean Gore like we've seen him do against Yusuri Belgari, where he kind of just clinched him the entire fight, held him down, held him against the cage. He can do that to people, and this is the first time Marco Tulio is fighting somebody in the UFC or his past 4 opponents or whatever that's actually his height. Everybody else he's fought has been 6'4", 6'5", so that's actually very good for Marco Tulio. Tresean Gore's stand-up is very rudimentary. I use that term very based. He'll throw, like I said, thudding low kicks, a jab, very loopy right hand, rinse and repeat, try to walk you down, force you into his fight, kind of try and land his powerful shots, shoot takedowns, pick him and slam him whenever he can. I think Marco Tulio, another thing he does well is counter off of kicks. Counter off of kicks very well. Tresean Gore throws like I said, a number of kicks, and Marco Tulio really tries to counter them very early, will try to find a counter for them. I think he does. I think that's exactly how he's going to KO Tresean Gore. That's how Cody Brundage actually KO'd Tresean Gore, because he found a pattern. It was like, oh, he just leaves his chin in this area when he throws that right side low kick. Let me just throw a punch there. I think Marco Tulio is a game planner. I think he finds those holes in people's games. I think he KOs Tresean Gore very early. We move to Sumudaerji versus Mitch Raposo. I'm going to go with Sumudaerji by points. I think he can win a decision. I do believe that this can turn into a trap fight if Mitch can land a hard enough shot. This fight's very weird because Mitch Raposo is one of these guys at flyweight who's undersized somehow in the smallest division in the UFC. He's somehow a small guy for this division. I don't know if Mitch Raposo, his striking, very quick kid, very quick guy on the feet, very, quick twitch muscle. Not a lot of power. He's got 4 KOs, but he hasn't shown that in the UFC. Of course, his UFC debut against Andre Lima kind of was a little lackluster, short notice. Andre missed weight as well. And Mitch Raposo had a split decision. It wasn't really a split decision. I think Mitch Raposo almost lost every single round. Essentially, you can make an argument. But Sumudaerji is one of these long, rangy motherfuckers for flyweight. It's gross. You think you're looking at a malnourished person the way that Sumudaerji's walking around. But he's kind of a bitch to deal with if you don't really know how to, maintain and be in someone's face. And that's something Mitch Raposo really struggles with, especially if he struggles early with low kicks and straight shots, which is Sumudaerji's, whole thing is. He'll step an elbow during moments, jab, right hand, low kick, beat up the calf. And I don't know if Mitch has the wrestling academic to really combat a Sumudaerji if he can't get it going on the feet. You know what I mean? I didn't really see that against Andre Lima. He more or less kind of allowed Andre to walk him down. He would sometimes explode, land shots on the guard, maybe pop Andre's head back with a jab during moments. But besides that, it was very one-way traffic. And Sumudaerji, he's on the decline, and honestly, Mitch might be able to chin him if Sumudaerji leaves his chin up in the air for far too long, gets caught with something, which could happen, honestly. And this is a fight that I've kind of been oscillating on my pick on, but I think I'm going to settle with Sumudaerji. I think that the length, and size, advantage he has against Mitch is going to be more of a detriment to Mitch Raposo than it is going to be good for him. That made no sense, but you get I think the size is really going to play a factor in this fight, and if Mitch can't close the distance on an Andre Lima who isn't even the size of Sumudaerji, that's not good at all. He might be able to quick twitch, blitz his way into a KO. I don't really see that happen. I think Sumudaerji's going to keep Mitch on the end of his punches, jab away, low kick, kind of try and keep him away, keep away, maybe bruise the legs early. And I don't know if Mitch has the wrestling. So I'll go Sumudaerji, 29-28, maybe split decision. We move to Sedriques Dumas versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. I'll go with Michal. This could turn into another boring fight. It depends on who wins. If Sedriques Dumas is winning, he'll be controlling Michal very boringly against the fence or getting takedowns. It'll look a lot like the Cody Brundage performance if he's able to control Michal Oleksiejczuk, which I think that he might struggle to do. Michal Oleksiejczuk is one of these dudes who I think has been fighting at the wrong weight class probably his entire career. Michal Oleksiejczuk should probably be a welterweight. He used to fight at light heavyweight, which is fucking nuts to me. And Sedriques, he's a weird guy because he's mid, but he has promise, but I don't think he'll ever meet that full promise. ever, because he has really long, stringy striking that I think he could use very well. Low kicks are very dynamic from Sedriques. Not dynamic, but very thudding low kicks, which can work very well against Michal Oleksiejczuk if you rewatch some tape. He does suffer from low kicks very easily. But Sedriques, that's about it. He'll throw a jab out there too. He'll throw a lead side head kick, and that's it. And then he'll shoot a double leg and try and control you against the fence, hold the back for a while, which has worked in every win. Cody Brundage legit just allowed that fight to happen. If you rewatch that fight, it is probably the most pitiful performance I think I've ever seen in my fucking life past a minute. Abu Azaitar is terrible, and Dennis Tululin has a record of 11-10. Right? That is dog shit. And Michal, even though he is 1-4 in his last 5, right, that's not good either. Do not get me wrong. He's only losing to kind of like monsters. Shar Magomedov, Kevin Holland, Michel Pereira, Caio Borralho. And the striking in the Caio Borralho fight was actually pretty competitive. And that's one of the sole reasons I'm picking him. Can Sedriques steamroll Michal Oleksiejczuk? I don't think so. Can he strike on the back foot as well as Shar Magomedov? Hell no. Is his wrestling good enough to control Michal Oleksiejczuk for the entire fight? I'm not sure, and I'm not going to bank on Sedriques' wrestling prowess to really shine through in this fight, which it can, because Michal has like a sub 50% takedown defense. But I think Michal really weighs on people with his pressure, and Sedriques, if he's moving backwards, is a shell of a fighter that he can be. I'll go Michal Oleksiejczuk, maybe round 2 TKO possibly. Michal goes to the body very frequently, and he can hurt Sedriques there, and he sets up his headshots with the body straight as well, and he kind of just walks people down. If Sedriques is able to take him down consistently, he'll win, but I can't bake on that because the people Sedriques has been beating just aren't on the level, you know what I mean? Like, they aren't, and he's not beating them in the way that I would want him to beat them if he was going to be anything. You got to finish Cody Brundage if you're beating him. Or you have to finish him. You got to finish Abu Azaitar, in my opinion. After a 2-year layoff, you have to. And then Dennis Tululin, you have to finish Dennis Tululin. He didn't do any of that. He just kind of smudged them. He's all right, but I don't think it'll match up well against Michal Oleksiejczuk. It can, if Michal's takedown defense is literally dog shit, which he defended a couple takedowns against Caio Borralho. So, I don't know. Let's see what happens. We move to Darren Elkins versus Julian Erosa. I'll go with Julian Erosa, probably by finish, maybe second round finish, sub or TKO. This is a weird one. It's 2 unks just slinging leather here, pal. We got an unk in the next fight, too. Darren Elkins, everyone knows him. Everyone loves him. Primarily a wrestler with some robotic striking, kind of wrestler from like the late 2000s, early 2010s, you know what I mean? Like they're super, tight guard, and then feint the jab over the top with the same left hand, just kind of trying to work their way into a take. Get to the takedown by any means necessary. I think Julian's going to throw a lot of teep kicks to the body, try and wear out Darren Elkins. His stringy punches are going to work very well, in my opinion. He's going to have a huge size advantage. And he's not a guy who really struggles on the ground. In fact, Julian Erosa actually has some really nasty ground game to him. And I think he's going to be able to use that decently well against Darren Elkins, even if it does get to those positions. Something that I saw Daniel Pineda have a lot of success with was reversing positions or establishing submission attempts. I think Julian Erosa probably has a better guillotine than Daniel Pineda, even though Daniel Pineda does have a lot of subs on his record from what I remember. I think he has doesn't Daniel Pineda have fucking a shit ton of subs? He does. He has 19 submission wins. He was able to get close on a couple submission attempts against Darren Elkins. I think Julian Erosa has a bit better, arms. He has a bit more bladed arms to be able to cut off the blood a bit better. And he's coming off of 2 really solid wins in Christian Rodriguez and Ricardo Ramos, and he finished both those guys in the first rounds. His chin is having a career resurgence, and Darren Elkins isn't really a guy who gets knockouts on the feet in the first place. I think on the feet, Julian Erosa does keep his hands low, but Darren's going to have to deal with a huge reach disadvantage, and Julian's going to be teeping him to the body, keeping him at bay with straight shots. kind of wing a wild hook over the guard, touch him to the face with a front kick maybe, and if it does enter the grappling, I think Julian Erosa has a bit more finishing threat. Overall, I think Julian Erosa is just a better pick. Also, he's not 40, so there's also that. We move to Jim Miller versus Chase Hooper. I'll go with Chase Hooper by... Has Jim ever been subbed outside of Charles Oliveira subbing him? He has 3 submission losses. I think Chase Hooper will win anyways, but I'm trying to think if a finish is definitely possible here. On the feet, it'll be very hard for Jim to enter the pocket against Chase Hooper, which is where he does his best work, especially as of recently. He has a froggy-type build to throw a lot of thigh kicks. He doesn't really go to the calf. He's one of these old heads that still goes like above the knee with his kicks. And Chase Hooper, you know, people forget, man, he's got this like floaty kickboxing style where he can get the leg up and switch the knee very quickly midair, kind of like Sedriques does against Sean Strickland in their most recent fight, where he kind of just throws it up there and then can hook the knee really quick and land a head kick, kind of flip it over. And his striking, while slower than Jim Miller, which is kind of disgusting, even though Jim is 41. Chase Hooper's not a striker first, he is a grappler first. And Jim Miller, a lot of people remember him as this knockout dude. He actually has a lot of submission wins. I always bring this up whenever he fights, which is kind of crazy that he fights as often as he does. How many wins by submission does Jim Miller have? He has 21 wins by submission. So this is going to be a dude who can match the submission threat with Chase Hooper and maybe be able to defend some, which is why I'm thinking it might not be a finish. And I think Chase Hooper might win by decision. On the feet, he'll keep Jim Miller away, try to keep him at bay with his, you know, long left hand down the middle, down the pipe, something he threw against Vyacheslav Borshev a lot, Clay Guida as well. He kind of just throws it out there, goes forward, throws like 3 in a row, switches, kind of resets, gets back into his stance, throws the hook head kick like I've mentioned. Not like a hook kick, but like, you know, the over-the-top kind of lead head kick that he usually throws. Body kicks galore, maybe a low kick. I think overall, actual wrestling, Jim Miller is a bit better in actual wrestling terms, but in jiu-jitsu, I would favor Chase Hooper in this fight just because he is longer as well. Unless Jim Miller goes for like an arm bar, I think Chase Hooper has the submission ability advantage in this fight. He's also younger, you know, he's 16 years younger than fucking Jim. Like, I have to take that into account. And Jim, he beats Damon Jackson, okay. Gabriel Benitez, okay. Jesse Butler, like, these are not good fighters. Eric Gonzalez, the first ever fighter to ever interact with me on Instagram, he is not good. Nicholas Mota isn't that good either. You know, Cowboy, that was in the twilight. I'm not forgetting the King Green or Alexander Hernandez performances where guys really tuned him up and he started slowing down excessively in that fight. I remember that. If Chase Hooper's able to get to dominant position, I don't know if Jim Miller's going to be able to hook up out of it and power his way through it or out-technique Chase Hooper. Chase Hooper's a bitch to deal with everywhere the fight goes. The ground, especially on the feet, it's just because he's so long. And he's at a division where he doesn't have to cut, you know, as much weight, where his chin is a little bit more hydrated. So I'll go Chase Hooper by unanimous decision. I'll go 30-26. I think one of these rounds is going to be a 10-8. We move to Xiaonan versus Virna Jandiroba. Tricky fight. Very tricky fight. I'll go with fucking Xiaonan. I'll go Xiaonan on this one. This is one I literally had the pick in my mind, but I'm already fucking... it is a really weird fight, because Xiaonan's biggest weakness is her takedown defense and her grappling. We've seen that many a time before. And Virna Jandiroba, that is her whole thing, is her grappling prowess and how it has carried her throughout her MMA career, especially as of recent, of course, getting the submission win over Amanda Lemos, being able to control Lupita Godinez. I'm pretty sure she did the same exact thing to Marina Rodriguez and Angela Hill as well. I think if Xiaonan is smart, which I think she is, I think Xiaonan can be a smart fighter. she's going to have a significant striking advantage against Virna Jandiroba, who all she throws is super out of range kicks. She'll throw an out of range low kick, out of range head kick. Sometimes the low kicks will land, sometimes they won't. And then a jab. And then she'll be kind of just like bouncing in and out. She has knee pads on. And Xiaonan looked really good against Tabitha Ritchie last time out. And Tabitha Ritchie, her whole thing is also usually her wrestling. She defended pretty well there. She didn't defend all that great against Zhang Weili, but the fact that she won a round striking against Zhang Weili, especially modern day, I like that a lot. And Virna Jandiroba doesn't grapple like Zhang Weili. She's not a striker at all. She doesn't ground and pound whatsoever. She is like specifically submission only. She doesn't throw any strikes. She looks to control and submit. That's it. Zhang Weili will pound you the fuck out, maybe find a sub here or there, get to dominant position. I've seen Virna Jandiroba get reversed by some people, like Amanda Lemos, which I'm not a huge fan of, even though Amanda Lemos did show some pretty good grappling against Yasmin Lucindo, who I don't think is all that good. I think Xiaonan on the feet can pepper her up a little bit, kind of crafty her way through it. Maybe land some hard shots. On damage, I think that this fight's going to be very easily Xiaonan, but the fact is that it's WMMA, and if Virna gets a takedown at the end of the round, they're just going to give it to her for some reason. So that's why it's a tricky fight. I think on damage, this fight is very easily going to be Xiaonan unless Virna finds a submission win, which definitely can happen. But I think that Xiaonan working her grappling, I hope she's been working on her grappling and just preparing to be better, and she'll have better stand-up on the night. So I'll go Xiaonan. We move to the featured prelim, Dan Ige versus Sean Woodson. I've been oscillating my pick on this one since it got announced. I'm going to go with the underdog in Dan Ige by KO. This is a very interesting... I just bumped the fuck out of my mic. It's a super interesting fight because it's like one of these circus show fights where Sean Woodson is like hilariously bigger than Dan Ige, but Dan Ige's got some serious pop to him. And when we've seen Sean Woodson get hit clean, he does not like it. If you can pressure him on the back foot and do not allow him to move forward where he is at his best, he can seem to falter. That's something that we've seen a lot of people do to him. Alex Caceres late in their fight was doing that extremely well. Fernando Padilla in the first 2 minutes of their fight was doing that pretty well. The difference is that Dan Ige can do that right off the bat and maintain that for as long as he can. He's got 5-round experience going up against Calvin Kattar and Chan Sung Jung, of course, losing both those fights. And even though Dan Ige is 18-9, you look at the people he's losing to, right? You look at the people he's losing to, right? Lerone Murphy, who just beat Josh Emmett. Diego Lopes on 6 hours' notice. Bryce Mitchell, that was a very close fight as well. Same with the Lerone Murphy. Mavzar Evloev, he got kind of dominated. Josh Emmett, that was a close-ass fight. I'll be the first one to tell you. Chan Sung Jung, of course, the Korean Zombie. Calvin Kattar, and then Julio Arce as well. You see how many KOs he has? He has 6 KOs. That doesn't really show the power of Dan Ige, though. When he can land flush, he can fucking hurt people pretty bad. Lerone Murphy comes to mind, dropped him pretty bad. Andre Philly comes to mind, hurt him pretty bad. Damon Jackson as well. Gavin Tucker very early in their fight as well. I'm seeing this fight. I'm seeing Sean Woodson doing his little fucking stupid hand. He's gesticulating so much. He's doing this dumb all around the world bullshit with his hands. He's kind of slow for a featherweight, which is what he should be. He's 6'2". He's a bit slower, and Dan Ige is going to have a bit of a speed advantage. If he can track Sean down, it's a big cage, so it's going to be a little hard. Sean falters as the fight goes on. He starts to wane. He starts to gas out a little bit because he does a lot of extra stuff, especially early in fights, fainting up the up knee, looking like he's about to explode. And he will explode sometimes, and that's when Luis Saldana caught him pretty bad with a check right hook. I think Dan Ige can do the exact same thing. Sean Woodson's explosions are probably the weakest part of his game, if I'm being honest. When he works at range, is doing really good. When he explodes like that, he leaves himself really open to fucking right and left hooks. I think Dan Ige can catch him coming in. And Dan Ige, if he catches you hard enough, and we've seen Sean Woodson's got a big-ass head. He probably cuts a lot of weight. Used to be a light heavyweight. Car crash helped him make to featherweight. I think he's going to get clipped. And it is one of those things where I just get a vibe. You know what I mean? And usually my vibe picks aren't usually right. Of course, Josh Emmett, Lerone Murphy last weekend comes to mind. I had a feeling, you know what I mean? I got a feeling Dan Ige is going to collaterally knock the fuck out of Sean Woodson. I don't know what it's based on. I don't know if it's because I don't like Sean Woodson, because I don't. I think he's gross. I think I've picked against him every time, if I'm being honest. Besides the Luis Saldana fight, if that helps. I just think Sean Woodson's going to meet something. And it's not like he's young, either. Like, that's another thing. Like, Dan Ige's taken quite a bit of damage in his career, which makes him, like, 36 in fight years. But he's only 33. And he's fighting a lot of good guys. This is, in all reality, a pretty decent step down in competition for him since probably the Andre Fili fight. Diego Lopes and Lerone Murphy back-to-back. And you saw what he did against a gassed-out Diego Lopes, which is a fight we might reference later in the video, of course. I think that Dan Ige can clip Sean Woodson. Sean Woodson is good. His boxing is very good. But it's one of those things where he's too stringy that he doesn't really have a lot of pop on his actual punches. He kind of just throws a lot of pitter-pat shots on the guards of people, pops their head back with a jab. He never really, finds a finish. He found a finish against Fernando Padilla. Alex Caceres was a really close fight. Charles Jourdain, it was a split. It shouldn't have been. I thought that was pretty clearly Sean Woodson. The Dennis Bajuka fight was pretty good. It was a pretty good performance from him. Colin Aglin is dog shit. Yusuf Zalal, that's a good win. He's good, but I don't know if he's top 15 level yet. Okay? I needed to see him against somebody else other than Fernando Padilla last time out. Okay? And Danny Ige, he's made a career off of knocking out people like this or beating guys like this to stay in the top 15. Okay, he's made a career out of this. I'll go Danny Ige first or second round KO. We move to the start of the main card. Nikita Krylov versus Dominick Reyes. I'll go with Nikita Krylov by first round KO or submission. This can turn into a tricky fight given the fact that Nikita Krylov has taken so much time off. But I do believe he's a better mixed martial artist than Dominick Reyes. I also just think his style is going to be wicked against Dominick Reyes. Nikita Krylov just brings it from the second the fight starts. Dominick Reyes tries to slow things down at the start, kind of play a methodical kind of approach, use the range very well. Nikita just goes, dude. He guns at people and just throws massive hooks, and he can get himself caught, but he's got a decent enough chin. He's only been knocked out once in his entire career, and that was all the way back in 2013. He's fought some heavy hitters, man. He's fought some motherfuckers with some pop. Ryan Spann comes to mind. He knocked out Dominick Reyes. Volkanovski. Magomed Ankalaev doesn't get enough credit for his power. He's got some pop. Johnny Walker as well. Jan Blachowicz, literally Bush Power. He actually got subbed in that one, which was kind of wild. Dominick Reyes, of course he can find a shot that chins Nikita Krylov. Dominick Reyes has made a career out of that, being able to find shots down the middle and hurt people, especially as of recent against Anthony Smith and Dustin Jacoby. But I do have to remember the 4-fight losing streak and the amount of damage he took in those 4 losses. And he's not like Dustin Jacoby and fucking Anthony Smith. Big 25? Not Big 25, that was 24, but Anthony Smith, I'm not, after losing to Roman Dolidze 2 months earlier? Come on, dude. He gave up. He gave up in that fight. I watched it happen. He literally allowed that fight to happen. All right, I'm not going to forget that. I think Nikita Krylov, he can find shots on the feet. He does nasty work in the clinch with knees and foul and on breaks as well, which is something Dominick Reyes can struggle with. I just think Nikita Krylov can drown Dominick Reyes. We haven't seen Dominick Reyes in a super high-paced fight in a hot minute. Nikita Krylov always brings a high-paced fight. If you're in a Nikita Krylov fight, you better have fucking worked at elevation, dude, because you're gonna fucking need the red blood cells, because you're gonna be scrambling like a motherfucker. You're going to be fending off clinch attempts, backing up a lot. Nikita Krylov is a bitch to deal with. Now, he hasn't fought in 2 years since he fought Ryan Spanwin, Merab Dvalishvili. And was that 2 years ago, or was that... No, I think that was 2 years ago. It was a while ago, the last time Nikita Krylov fought. I do believe Nikita Krylov can find a finish in this fight, though. He got injured. He fought in Ukraine, I believe, is what the story was. For a while, he injured his back, which could result in him not being as good as he was, which I am well aware of, and that's something that's made me wary on this pick. I've even tried to think about maybe picking Dominick Reyes, but I do believe at the end of the day, Nikita Krylov is a better fighter than Dominick Reyes, and I think that he will chin him or sub him given the chance or opportunity. I've watched a lot of Nikita Krylov tape. He's a fucking weirdo, and I think it's going to work beautifully well against Dominick Reyes, who's a super technical, crispy crifter kind of stylistic fighter. And we'll see another matchup that kind of resembles this later down the line that I might have the same opinion on. I don't know. We'll find out. But I'll go Nikita Krylov, first round, finish, lock it in. We move to Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell versus John Lord Silva. Holy fuck. I gotta pick John Silva. I have to. This fight could end up really bad for him, but I don't think it will. Let me explain what can happen. On the feet, John has the power advantage very clearly and the technique advantage. Bryce Mitchell, don't get me wrong, listen, throws an outside low kick decently well. Can work with the jab in ones and twos. He does decently well in the clinch scenarios as well. Very good knees up the middle from Bryce Mitchell. We saw that a lot in the Crone-Gracie fight and a lot of fights prior to that. And let's be honest, Bryce Mitchell probably is one of the better grapplers at the 145 division. Insane jiu-jitsu, very good controlling presence on the ground. Very strong, it looks like, because he's a hick. But on the feet, we all know John Silva. Insane power, propaganda, huge. He's got fucking plot armor to the max. He's with the fighting nerds. He's got power, very technical as well, very damage-based striking, and I love that. He doesn't throw any bullshit. He just gets right to work. But he looks patient against Melsik Baghdasaryan, which is going to help him a lot. Because he can't explode more than he would usually. Because Bryce Mitchell, if this fight, he's going to shoot a takedown very early in this fight, I imagine. I don't think Bryce Mitchell is going to want to entertain the stand-up. Because if Bryce Mitchell watches footage, and I picked John Silva, but I'm going to say something. If John Silva loses, it'll be based on his... He moves his head, like, super back. He doesn't move it off the center line. He does, but if there's a straight coming, he'll just back the way up. Kind of leave his feet planted, but back his, like, whole upper body up, which you can't do that because it allows takedowns to happen way easier than they should. If Bryce Mitchell's able to read that, it can turn into a very bad first round, at least for John Silva, if he's not able to rework that. That's something he does a lot, and I've noticed it quite a bit. You can't have your head behind your hips or whatever, something like that. It makes it really hard to defend takedowns doing that. But John, I'm going to say it bluntly, Crone-Gracie was tagging Bryce up. I'm going to say it as bluntly as possible. Dude, Crone-Gracie actually landed some shit on Bryce Mitchell, and Bryce Mitchell did land some shit back on the feet, don't get me wrong. I hate seeing Crone-Gracie have any success in the striking department whatsoever. And I could say the same thing about Charles Jourdain having grappling success against John Silva. Charles Jourdain has very good submissions, but he's not really the craziest offensive wrestler, if we're being honest. It's kind of just like, you call one thing to happen. You either think Bryce Mitchell's going to be able to hold down and hog tie John Silva, or John Silva chins Bryce Mitchell in rounds 1 or 2. Maybe you take him by decision if Bryce Mitchell's able to last that long. I don't think he is going to. I think John Silva's going to get him out of there in the first or second round by KO. Bryce, a little too open on the feet for my liking. What just happened? Is it still recording? What the fuck? I don't know what just popped up on my screen. That was stupid. But I hope that the recording isn't fucked up by that. But I think John Silva's going to chin him early in this fight. It can turn bad. Bryce Mitchell, listen, he's a little too loosey-goosey on the feet, in my opinion. He's going to be way slower. John Silva throws a lot of crazy, wild techniques, step-in elbows, right hooks. He'll kind of just like lunge in a little bit, land the powerful shots. Head kicks are super fast from John Silva. And Bryce does counter. He tries to, at least. We saw that in the Josh Emmett fight, where he'll kind of stand his base, try to counter, and he gets caught for it a lot. That's something that I think Ilia Topuria had a lot of success with in their fight in the second round. John, if he does get taken down, I can only imagine that one of the only things John Silva's working on is his takedown defense, especially going into this fight. He keeps his hands already decently kind of like, he'll either keep them way high or super low. There's no in between. He's like Yuri Prohaska in a way like that. And I think John can, if he keeps his hands a little bit lower, if he doesn't really respect Bryce Mitchell striking, which can cause bad because we've seen Bryce hurt some people on the feet, Kron Gracie, Edson Barboza come to mind. I think that John Silva can cause damage to Bryce. Bryce shows damage pretty easily if you punch him hard enough. Dan Ige had his eyes swollen shut in like 2 minutes. I think John Silva can win this decently easily if he's able to defend takedowns and keep it standing, which we'll find out if he's able to do that come Saturday, but I think he will. John Silva, first or second round KO. Lock it in. We move to the featured fight. Yair Rodriguez versus Patricio Pitbull. I'll go with Yair Rodriguez by decision. I think Patricio's just a little too low output, in my opinion. I think he just doesn't throw a whole, like, enough to win a decision over Yair Rodriguez, who's going to be throwing fucking... Jesus, bless you. You sneezing enough? Gee, another one? God, you stink. That's my dog. Yair kicks a whole lot. Again, throws a lot of kicks, low kicks, body kicks, will bring it up high during moments. He's very dynamic, is Yair Rodriguez. Patricio Pitbull, kind of bread and butter type shit. You know what I mean? Like, he's a good mixed martial artist. I think it's just a little too late for him to join the UFC, and this is one of those ones where I know Bellator fighters, when they come in, are usually getting, like, these types of fights. You know, Michael Chandler fought Dan Hooker. That was after the, Poirier fight. Yair Rodriguez coming off the, Ortega fight. Honestly, maybe it's written in the stars that Patricio wins. Excuse me. But I don't know if Patricio Pitbull has enough of a wrestling base or game plan to eliminate and annihilate Yair Rodriguez. I think Yair Rodriguez is too weird for I think he might overload him a little bit. Patricio Pitbull, if he's kind of, he's a very stand your base kind of guy, flat-footed, kind of just looking at you move, low kick. He'll kind of walk at you a little bit. Yair Rodriguez is going to be bouncing all over the place. Jab, right, leg kick, body kick, head kick, all same side because he's like that. He's a fucking goober. I think he's going to overload the brain of Patricio Pitbull very early. I think later in the fight, Patricio might try to shoot a lot more takedowns than he does early on in the fight. Kind of try and make up for lost time. Maybe the second round's very close. I think the third round can definitely be a Patricio Pitbull round. Yair Rodriguez does slow down. But I'm looking at striking comparisons. Yair Rodriguez, making it close with Max Holloway, on the feet with Volkanovski, whenever it was on the feet, because he mostly got dominated on the ground in that fight, was landing decently well. Yair Rodriguez is making a lot of these strikers turn into wrestlers, and Patricio Pitbull might be the same, but I don't know if Patricio shoots enough takedowns or has that tool in his pocket, because Yair Rodriguez can maintain distance very well. He's also going to be severely outsized in this fight, is Patricio Pitbull. Maybe he chins Yair. Maybe Yair's been hurt a couple times in the UFC. But it's usually the ground where he becomes, very out of water in this sense. And Patricio, he got knocked out not too long ago by fucking some Ryzen dude. What was his name? Yeah, Chichiro Suzuki. Who's 13-5. He's lost 2 fights since then. I'm not a huge fan of that. He does seemingly hit pretty hard, but he just landed one solid shot and then hurt Patricio and then followed up with a right straight and knocked him clean out. Yair Rodriguez's boxing isn't very good, but he can set it up well with the kicks. Maybe Yair might find a finish early, possibly, because it's going to be a huge cage. Kicks are going to be huge for Yair Rodriguez in this fight. That's something that Patricio can struggle with and will struggle with in this fight if he's not catching them. So I'll go Yair Rodriguez to win by any means necessary. We move to the co-main event. Michael Chandler versus Paddy Pimblett. 5 rounds. I'm going to let a coin flip decide my fate. If it's heads, it's Michael Chandler. If it's tails, it's Paddy Pimblett. Let's see. Heads. Michael Chandler is going to be my pick then. You can make an argument for either of these guys. Hence why I went to the coin flip. I literally cannot make up my mind on this fight, so I had to let a external force decide it for me. Paddy Pimblett's going to have the grappling edge in this fight. My opinion now, I don't know if he's going to be able to implement his wrestling insanely well against Michael Chandler. He could. I don't think his takedown entries, like offensively, are really that good. It's his defensive wrestling entries when he's on his back foot and he kind of just like charges at the legs that can lead to maybe some takedowns. I think on the feet, it's going to be really fucking weird, man. Paddy Pimblett leaves his chin so far in the air. I don't think Chandler knocks him out, though. He could, but, like, Michael Chandler's got power. He's got crazy power. How many knockouts does Michael Chandler have in his 23 wins? 11. 11 wins by KO, 7 by submission. He's got power, but, like, the last guy he knocked out was Tony Ferguson. And then prior to that, it was Dan Hooker coming off the Poirier fight. So I'm looking at this, and this is why this fight is so hard to predict. I think 5 rounds is actually going to fuck over Paddy Pimblett, if I'm being totally honest with you. Rewatching the Tony Ferguson fight, he gassed out so fucking hard in that fight, just based off control. Like, control time is what gassed him out. And on the feet, Tony was landing some really good shots on him. I know Tony Ferguson is a completely different fighter and different fighting style. He's more long, more rangy. But Chandler, coming back after 2 years off against Charles Oliveira, was the dumbest idea he could have done. And that was an unwinnable fight for him. Charles is way too good to fight on 2 years layoff. He's too fast. He's too dynamic on the feet. He's super fast. Paddy Pimblett isn't that fast. With his hands, at least. His low kicks are probably the fastest part of his game, outside of his turbo 1-2-1-2, like 4 times combo that he throws sometimes. He loops a lot of his shots, so does Chandler, but I think Chandler's got more thud. But Chandler's chin isn't that, like, this is why this fight is so hard to predict. Because, like, they're both kind of mid on the feet, but Chandler's got more power, but he has a worse chin. And when it gets to the ground, I think Chandler's offensive wrestling is better, but his jiu-jitsu is far worse than Paddy Pimblett. It's like a yin and yang kind of thing. But I think 5 rounds, aforementioned, I think it really could play into Michael Chandler's game, who didn't slow down a lot against Charles. That was a slower-paced fight. And Charles honestly didn't look like he was trying to finish that fight at all for some reason. I don't know what it was. My friend mentioned that to me, and watching it back, I was like, damn, he really isn't really trying to find a finish here. He's kind of just stalling position. And Paddy Pimblett, he will find subs very quickly. He does when he gets to those positions, but it's if he can. Can he? He was half guard camping Tony Ferguson, essentially, for their whole fight. Tony was able to mitigate damage. Like, Jared Gordon, really? I get that was so long ago, but that was 3 fights ago for Paddy. That was 3 fights ago. The Bobby Green performance is really cool on paper. He subbed him. He's like the second person ever to sub him, but like, Bobby's like he's washed. He's washed now. So could Chandler. So could Chandler as well. He's 38. But I think this is one of the fights where the thickness of Paddy Pimblett isn't going to be on display as much. Paddy's a big lightweight, but Michael Chandler's also a big lightweight, but in a different way. and he's very athletic, and most people can't match the athleticism that Paddy Pimblett has. Michael Chandler can also do that. On the feet, his lunging attacks, I think, are really going to play well. Paddy Pimblett just kind of leaves his chin in the air and his hands a little too low. On damage, I think Michael Chandler can beat up the body as well, beat up the head, kind of go upstairs. If Paddy Pimblett wins, it'll be by submission or KO. If Paddy wins, it'll be by finish. I'm taking Michael Chandler by decision in this one. And mind you, a coin flip decided this for me. I'm indecisive on this fight. Even like breaking it down right now, I can definitely make an argument that Paddy Pimblett could win. This could go bad for either guy. Paddy has all the momentum in the world going into this fight, coming off the Bobby King Green performance. His activity also scares me. It's not like Michael Chandler's the only inactive person in this fight. Paddy Pimblett's inactivity also needs to be mentioned. I think Chandler can hurt him a couple times. But it's one of those fights where I feel like Chandler's going to be doing really well and then fuck it up by doing something stupid like shooting a fucking takedown on Paddy and finding himself in a fucking submission or giving up his back. Like, I don't know what it is. I have a feeling that, like, that's the reason why I want to pick Paddy, is because I feel like Michael's going to do well and then fuck it up for himself. Coin flip decided fucking heads. I could use free will and just switch my pick, but I'm going to stick with Michael Chandler. Because he's an underdog as well. And I feel like underdog on Michael Chandler in this fight's going to play very well if he wins. But Paddy can win. But, like, Paddy, he telegraphs so much. So does Michael, but Paddy's slower. He's slower than Michael. His low kicks are super telegraphed, and Tony was countering them pretty well. This fight is bogus, dude. All right. Michael Chandler. I've said enough. Michael Chandler, unanimous decision. I'll go 48-47. I think he might win the last 2 rounds and then one of the first 3. Maybe he drops Paddy, possibly. Gets around there. I think as the fight goes on, Paddy's going to slow down. The takedown threat isn't going to be there as much. He's going to be backing up willingly, and Michael's kind of just going to be walking him down a little bit, hopefully picking his shots well. If not, he'll get caught and probably sparked, because Paddy does have power as well. He just doesn't have enough KOs to show it. Michael Chandler. We move to the main event. Alexander Volkanovski versus Diego Lopes for the vacant featherweight title. I'm going to go with Alexander Volkanovski by late round finish, probably 4 or 5. It's a tricky fight. Of course, a lot of tricky fights on this card, actually. Because I could very well see Diego Lopes possibly chinning Volkanovski very early in this fight, right hand over the top. Volkanovski seemingly drops his lead hand and kind of just like backs up with his chin in the air. Does that a lot. It's what got him caught against Ilia Topuria, of course. And he's been caught some other times. Some flash knockdowns from Max Holloway come to mind. I truly believe Volkanovski's just better, though. I think Volkanovski's a better athlete. Not athlete. Diego Lopes is a better athlete. He's more athletic than Volk. But I think that he's a better fighter in Volkanovski. I think his low kicks can play a huge factor in this fight. Diego Lopes stands very, lead leg heavy, kind of, hovers forward, leans forward. I mean, just waiting to crack a right hand or throw a right overhand or throw a leg kick of his own, which leg kicks of Diego Lopes can actually play a factor as well, because Volkanovski did get chewed up a little bit by Ilia Topuria's low kicks. But I think Volkanovski's output is what's really going to be a huge factor in this fight. Volkanovski lands about 6 strikes per minute, and we know Diego Lopes, we don't know, but we can kind of infer that his cardio is not 5-round worthy. Listen, the Brian Ortega fight was honestly very impressive, the way he was able to pace himself decently well for 3 rounds, but he did slow down in that fight. He did. Even though he threw however many strikes he did in the 3rd round, ended up winning it with a knockdown near the end or hurt him and stumbled him. He still did slow down. Dan Ige fight comes to mind. That fight, I don't entirely hold that over Diego Lopes' head because it was short notice. More short notice for Diego Lopes, like camp-wise, than Dan Ige, to be fair. But Dan Ige did step up 5 hours notice and did out-cardio Diego Lopes. The Movsarov Loya fight comes to mind. Again, short notice. Every other fight that we've seen him in, ended in the first minute. So we don't we don't really have a lot of cardio stuff to go off of. Joe Anderson Brito, he did slow down on the Contender Series from what I remember. Grappling. The grappling idea in this fight. I think Volkanovski's a better wrestler than Diego Lopes. Diego Lopes has better jiu-jitsu. But Diego Lopes doesn't have the best jiu-jitsu Alexander Volkanovski has fought against. Offensively, at least. Diego Lopes will grit his face trying to find subs, but he is not Islam Makhachev. He might be... Brian Ortega's weird, because he's got really good jiu-jitsu, but who's the best person he's even subbed? Would it be Yair? Yair would probably be the best person he's subbed, I guess. And Diego, he's subbing Gavin Tucker. He's knocking out everybody else. Does really nasty work in the clinch, which is something that Volkanovski, I would like him to stay away from if he's going to win this fight. Diego Lopes really has insane dirty boxing techniques when he can grab the back of the head, or someone has a tie clinch and he just starts unloading uppercuts and hooks all over the place like he did against Sadiq Youssef and Brian Ortega in moments, actually, where he just kind of, and Pat Sabatini as well, where he just kind of unloads all over the place when people try to have like a tie clinch or a single collar. He doesn't really even fight for hand position. He just unloads on people. I think 100% striking from Diego Lopes is what's going to end up being his downfall. I think it is okay to bank on Diego Lopes slowing down in this fight because we've seen it happen before. 5 rounds, Diego Lopes will try and pace himself, and I honestly think that could be a bad play. Diego Lopes in this fight should go out there guns blazing and trying to knock out Volkanovski in the first 2 rounds. He might try to pace himself to where he can go 5 rounds and actually not capitalize on Volkanovski's weakest part, which at this moment in time is his durability. And Diego Lopes might go in there with the idea of, I don't really want to gas out in this fight. I can't have what happened in the Dan Ige fight happen, because then I'll gas out, lose the last 3 rounds. I got to really pace myself and not have the same output. Meanwhile, Volkanovski's throwing 18 low kicks in 3 minutes and 13 body kicks and throwing 50 jabs in the first 2 rounds. And Diego Lopes is trying to play catch-up at that point now. If Diego Lopes goes out there guns blazing, he has a better chance of winning. I think Diego Lopes might not do that, though. I think he might go into this fight with a more quote-unquote intelligent approach and actually kind of fuck himself over by not trying to get Volkanovski out of there in the first 2 rounds. I think Diego Lopes can win. He can definitely knock out Volkanovski. I see the holes in Volkanovski's game where the right overhand can definitely land for Diego. But I think time off for Volkanovski is going to help him out. I think he's a better boxer, better kickboxer than Diego Lopes. The only thing Diego Lopes really has in this fight is probably athleticism early on and power. And even then, Volkanovski's got decent power himself, and jiu-jitsu as well. I forgot to mention that. But I think Volkanovski, overall, can mix it up better, maybe mix in takedowns. Mix in takedowns, try and slow down Diego Lopes if he is a fire hydrant early, trying to just knock him out really early, put out that fire. And I think Diego Lopes will probably get finished later in this fight. Just kind of, I don't know. I think Diego Lopes will just slow down as the fight goes on, aforementioned. Kind of lose positioning, kind of allow himself to get backed up more and more and more, which is something you never want to happen when you're fighting Volkanovski, when he's got you backing up. And to be fair, like, Diego Lopes does really good work when he's moving forward. We've seen Volkanovski fight off 15 rounds rather, from Max Holloway. He beat Max Holloway in the 3rd fight single-handedly on the back foot, which is fucking disgusting. And Volkanovski does a lot of damage to people. Visible damage especially. That's going to help out a lot in this fight. So Volkanovski, if it goes to a decision at least. I don't think it does. Finish, Volkanovski, lock it in. I'm UC Thoughts. These have been my picks and breakdown for every fight on UFC 314, Volkanovski vs. Lopes on April 12th, 2025. My confident picks reside with Marco Tulio, Nikita Krylov, and John Silva. My pre-card rating is a 9 out of 10. This is a badass pay-per-view. Got a lot of cool guys on here. The main card is stacked to the teeth. Got a lot of fights that have finishing possibilities. The 2 top fights of the card, the possibilities of how they end are fucking endless, honestly. Jones Silva, Bryce Mitchell, probably one of the most hyped up fights this year. Yair Rodriguez, Patricio Pitbull, first fight in the UFC. Got a couple old heads on here as well to pick up the slack of, they got some DEI hires on here with a number 1 contenders fight at strawweight. You got there's a lot of, weirdos on here as well, but decent card. Yeah, should be a good one. I'll see you guys after the fights. Peace.